Hey everyone, it's November 8th, 2020. My name's Bobby Frankenberger, and I'm here with the rest of the SCN crew today, and we're going to talk about some of the tabletop gaming news for this week. We'll be talking about Atlas Architect is a new way to build 3D worlds. Dungeon crawl board game Bardsung is coming to Kickstarter on November 10th, and Critical Role featured the combat wheelchair by Mustangsart or Sarah Thompson. So we'll be talking about that. If you have any news that you'd like us to talk about, then you should send it over to us on Discord. We've got our Discord channel that you can find at shadowcasters.network/Discord. And you can drop it into the news suggestions channel over there. Or you can consider becoming a patron over at patreon.com/shadowcasters. We love including our patrons in all of as much as we can, including questions for the show, your news suggestions, and we have the stupid game that we play live that only patrons get to see and participate in. So if you want to be a part of that, maybe we should put a segment of that together sometime and throw it out there so that people can get a teaser. Yeah, the best of the stupid game. Anyway, check that out.
The stupidest.
You also get, as a patron of all the levels, you get access to the recordings of the full live show, which we do this every Sunday night at 9 p.m. Eastern Time. We record a whole thing live, including the news. So join us for that. Anyway, let's get into the news. Daniel Rashidi, a video game developer who's worked on big AAA titles like Battlefield and Battlefront, is working on a personal project called Atlas Architect. It's a 3D mapping game that is just intended to be a relaxing, creative experience, putting together cool maps of amazing worlds. And the way it works is you start with a blank slate of an open ocean, and then you start plopping in various types of terrain hexes from a set of predefined biomes like farmlands, cities, and grasslands, and mountains, and jungles, and plenty more. Right now, there's actually 20 different biomes and 10 more in the works, including things like elven villages and orc camps and floating islands and stuff. Atlas Architect is really just intended to be a relaxing world creation experience with no real objective except to make cool landscapes. So, to me, it has a very Sim City feel to it, minus the actual simulation engine. You get to click to put terrain in a hex, and you click it again to make the elevation go up and down. And the 3D engine that runs it all smooths out all the edges and makes everything look amazingly natural. There's also a ton of really satisfying plop and ploop noises as you add and remove landscape. So that's really cool. You should really check it out. It seems like a fun way to generate maps for your RPGs. There's a way you can see it in 3D, kind of get a better feel for it, and you can export the maps in 2D. So pretty cool thing. It's on Kickstarter. You should get a copy of the game for support of 100 Swedish krona, because I did it myself. That's about $11.47. I supported it because I think it looks pretty neat. But check it out on Kickstarter. That is Atlas Architect, and we'll have a link down below. We get a ton of these different things. So what do you have any need? What do you think about the ability to 3D, like to see your world that would be a map that you create normally in 2D and get an opportunity to see it in 3 dimensions? Does that interest you guys? Because I kind of feel like it looks like it would give a better sense of scale and scope and stuff.
Mm-hmm. I think like the ultimate goal of it is really, really cool. I would have to see it in action to see if it would be helpful or not, because most of the things like that so far have been so fiddly and hard to use that I haven't had use for them.
This seems like the opposite of that. I don't know if you've seen the videos for another game that this reminds me a lot of that came out more this summer, Townscaper. It's all town-based. You just sort of click on things and it makes the town in different ways. And it's just sort of a relaxing city building game, though. The idea that you can export maps from it, I think, is something I hadn't heard of from that.
That is a
cool feature
idea.
in this. That's neat. It does seem to be very, at least from the images I've seen, kind of very fantasy space themed. It would
Definitely.
be really neat to see more of this stuff where you could pick a modern or sci-fi look, because the fantasy map generators are all over the place, but the sci-fi or the modern map generators, not so much.
I did a long search for procedural modern or sci-fi map generators, and they just do not exist, or they used to exist and they got bought out by other countries or companies.
I think this could be fun for creating visual aids, but I don't think the utility would be that great for a game. I think it'd be just more of a fun hang out and chill, click on things and make stuff to look at experience.
I will say, watching it animated, like how it builds, it does build pretty quickly, and I can see it being relaxing, which is, it's nice to be able to craft something and relax doing it rather than just feel like I have so much, like if I put this here, I can't undo this without causing a whole big mess of, so it looks nice. It's hard for me to say like I'll get it for myself, but that's because I tend to not play a lot of fantasy stuff.
Like Cartographer's Animal Crossing or something like that.
Yeah.
It's really nice, actually, but it does look great. So anybody who would find use for this, I think they would definitely find a lot of great use for this.
Yeah, so I did, like I said, I backed it whenever it becomes available. I plan to check it out, and I'll report. Maybe I'll do a little review for us here and either recommend or not. So look for that. Next up, so there's a great new, cool-looking new dungeon crawl board game going up on Kickstarter soon called Bardsung. And it's now featuring Sarah Thompson, the disabilities gaming advocate that we've talked about in the past with the combat wheelchair we're going to talk about later. She's going to be a guest writer on it. By the way, I should say right away that this news item and the next one we're going to be doing were both recommended by Palmer on our Discord channel. Patrons can or not patrons, just anybody on our Discord can drop this in there. So thank you, Palmer. But Bardsung, let's talk about that, is a tabletop board game being developed by Steamforged Games. The game is a dungeon explorer game for 1 to 5 players. I know that Opti's going to love that it caps out at 5 players. The description on the Steamforged Games website describes the game as, quote, a game of choosing your path as you try to inspire the bard's songs and live out your legend. From your physical passage through the dungeon to the process of building your character into a fabled hero, your choices define your experience. So it seems to be a pretty versatile game, allowing for you to play with up to 5 people or solo in a campaign or standalone session, and the campaign evolves based on your decisions. It's a really interesting bit of information is how you can learn how to play in a tutorial-based rulebook. So I thought that was pretty cool for a board game. It's a tutorial-based rulebook that kind of walks you through the rules. It'll help you get to playing the game much faster, hopefully. The style seems to be your typical sword and sorcery themed approach all around. Seems like an interesting game with an interesting approach. The Kickstarter launches on November 10th, and you can already go ahead and follow it, and we'll have a link to the Kickstarter down in the notes, so check that out. Moving right along, though, speaking of Sarah Thompson, is the latest episode of Critical Role. Not that I want to be, the Critical Role analysis podcast here. We've been talking about them, I think, the last couple of episodes. But Critical Role...
Tune into
the Critical Role DM Matt Mercer included an NPC who used the now famous combat wheelchair created by Sarah Thompson, also known as Mustangsart on Twitter. Back in September, for those who don't know, Thompson released a comprehensive 7-page document on rules they created for a combat wheelchair to use in creating disabled characters in D&D 5th edition. The wheelchair stirred up quite a bit of argument on the internet, but Wizards of the Coast gave a lot of praise, and so did Matt Mercer. Now it seems that a new NPC, Dagon, a hard-drinking, no-nonsense dwarf explorer who's seen his fair share of adventures, is using the wheelchair. So that's pretty cool. It's great to see this particular thing getting a lot more attention, I think. That sort of the nature of social media nowadays could have easily seen this awesome wheelchair fade from memory. You know what I mean? That's kind of how a lot of things end up going. But a high-profile D&D program like Critical Role could keep it in the public awareness, like where it needs to be. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
So
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely. I just saw, I think this week that Mustangsart was doing some work for Artel Saurian as well. I don't know if that was
Yes.
Cyberpunk or Witcher or whatever.
Cyberpunk
but,
Red.
yeah.
I think,
so,
although I think they might be working on Witcher as well.
yeah.
So
I think
that's cool that that they're getting some expanded influence.
Yep.
Oh, I did see. Yeah, now that I think about it, I did see Artel Saurian, their Twitter account posted that they were working on what was it? It's like something cyber, something along the basically like combat wheelchair, ish for cyberpunk.
Yeah.
I don't remember what exactly it was, but
I'm glad
I'm
that
sure Palmer will tell me.
I'm glad that Sarah Thompson's getting a lot of notice and some work and everything, because the work that they're doing with advocating for these types of things is pretty amazing. I know we talked about this a little bit, but it was on our our episode 0 patron only practice stream that we did of this show. So, but back then we talked about how when I read through that combat wheelchair document, I didn't know that it was designed in a dyslexia dyslexia friendly font, and I didn't even know that was a thing. And that's kind of like to me a point.
That's how I found out about that being a thing.
And that's exactly why people like this need to be working in the industry, because I didn't even know that was something to even be considered when you were making stuff like this, So
well, yeah, because you don't realize that dyslexic people that there are fonts out there that can help them actually be able to read something and then be able to play the game along with non-dyslexic people.
Yeah, exactly, or at least So very cool, Sarah Thompson. Keep doing the good work that you're doing. These are just some of the things that are going on in the world of tabletop this week. If you know of some other news stories you'd like to discuss, you should head on over to our Discord server at shadowcasters.network/Discord. We've got a channel there for suggesting news items. You can also email us at contact@shadowcasters.network, and consider becoming a patron, patreon.com/shadowcasters. But if nothing else, definitely subscribe. Click the bell icon when you're done. Get notified when we go live, when these segment videos go live. If you missed the live show, we put them all up there. And so my name's Bobby Frankenberger, and these are my tabletop rogues.
Cohorts.
Yeah. And we'll see you next week for some more tabletop news.